He was wearing my father's watch and smiling like it was his. The airport lounge was bright, sterile, and humming with quiet luxury. I didn't belong there, not anymore. But I walked straight through the glass doors like a man with a purpose. Because I was. I spotted them instantly. Her laugh cut through the room like a knife. She always laughed like that when she wanted attention. Careless, a little too loud, rehearsed. She leaned into him, whispering something in his ear. He chuckled, raised his wrist to check the time, and I froze. It was there. The watch. My father's watch. Gold-toned Omega, cracked leather strap, inscription on the back. To my son, for time well spent. She knew what that watch meant. She knew I kept it in a locked drawer. She knew it was the only thing I had left from him, and now it was on his wrist. The room blurred. My breath stopped somewhere in my chest. I didn't walk closer. I didn't scream. I didn't make a scene. I just turned around and left. Outside, heat baked the sidewalk. I found my car by muscle memory. Hands shaking. Doors unlocked. Inside, I gripped the wheel, trying to breathe. That morning I'd been at the hospital. My mother, fading, fighting. Her hands like paper. Her voice barely more than a whisper. Go home, she'd said. Shower. Eat something. Instead, I came home to a message on the kitchen counter, written in her looping cursive. I'm leaving. Don't try to call. Don't try to follow. I'm sorry it had to be this way. S. Next to the note was the empty watch box, open, hollow, like a wound. I sat down right there on the floor. The tiles were cold. The silence pressed in around me. I didn't cry. I stared at the box until it blurred, until my legs went numb, until the sunlight shifted across the floor and the room went dark. Then I got up. The next morning I checked her location history, still shared on an old app she forgot to disconnect. She was in Miami. Flight records confirmed it. Booked under her maiden name. 2 tickets. 1 luxury suite reserved at a beachfront hotel. She was already gone. But I had to see it for myself. I flew down, rented a car, walked into that lounge like a ghost in my own story. And now, seeing them, seeing him with that watch, it finally hit me. She hadn't just left. She'd stolen something sacred. She'd taken my grief, my father's memory, and handed it to a stranger like a souvenir. And still, I didn't move. But something inside me did. I started to think, when did it all begin to unravel? Because now I had to know, not just what she took, but why. I started thinking when everything began to fall apart. But the cracks had been there long before I saw them. After Miami, I returned to an apartment that didn't feel like mine. Same furniture, same kitchen. But the air had changed. The walls felt thinner. Everything echoed. Her closet was empty, but not in a rush. Not like she'd packed in panic. She'd taken her time. Favorite shoes gone, jewelry box missing. Even the books she never finished reading were cleared out. Only the framed wedding photo remained, tilted face down on the shelf. I picked it up. We looked happy. But now it felt like a still from a film I couldn't remember starring in. Later that night, I opened my laptop. I clicked on photos from the past year. Holidays, dinners, a few blurry selfies. Her eyes were somewhere else in all of them. Not distracted, absent. I hadn't seen it then. Or maybe I didn't want to. The next day, I checked my safe again. Nothing else was missing. Only the watch. Why that? I remembered the moment I got it. After Dad passed, Mom called me into his study. She handed me the box, hands trembling. He wanted you to have this, she'd said. It was always his reminder. Time is the one thing you never get back. I wore it once, at the funeral. After that, I kept it locked away. Until now. I began going through her things, not out of anger, out of hunger. I needed to find something. A clue, a lie, a hint she left behind. That's when I found the box. buried in the laundry bin, small, matte black, GPS tracker brand I didn't recognize. At first, I thought it was hers, maybe from a past job, but when I powered it on, synced it with my phone, a pin dropped. Miami. Not just Miami. His apartment. A high-rise I didn't recognize, but it wasn't random. I remembered her reaction when I joked about installing a tracker in my car months ago. She'd laughed too hard, nervous. What am I, a criminal? Now I wasn't sure she hadn't been watching me all along. I stared at the location dot pulsing on the screen. She'd kept this thing charged, hidden, active. For what? I felt cold, like the air had shifted. I sat down, trying to piece it all together. That's when the memory came back. Last winter. We were at dinner with friends. She got up to take a call. I saw her phone screen light up. A man's name I didn't recognize. She said it was work. Late client request. I believed her. I always believed her. But maybe that was the moment. The first real fracture. And I'd smiled through it. Back then, I didn't want to know. But now, I couldn't stop. Something wasn't right. This wasn't just infidelity. This was planned, precise, like a heist. And the watch was only the beginning. I stopped grieving and started thinking, like a man standing at the edge of a minefield, counting the clicks underfoot. The GPS tracker wasn't a fluke. It had been installed inside the drawer that held the watch. I unscrewed the false bottom, and there it was, wedged between wood panels, glued in like a secret. She'd been tracking when I opened that drawer. She knew exactly when to strike. That night, I drove to the police station. I didn't expect sympathy. I wanted a record. The officer on duty, mid-50s, tired eyes, listened without interrupting. I kept it short. Watch stolen, high value, sentimental, not just monetary. I mentioned the tracker, her sudden departure, the location data. He raised an eyebrow. Got proof she took it? I pulled up a photo. Him, the watch, the airport. The officer nodded slowly. You know his name? Not yet. Then get it. We can't file interstate theft until we prove it's not just a marital dispute. Marital dispute. That phrase rang in my ears all the way home. I opened her emails. Most were gone, deleted. But one folder remained. Trips. Dozens of flight confirmations, hotel bookings, all under a different name. Samantha Ellis, her maiden name. One receipt stood out, 3 months old. Jewelry appraisal service in Manhattan. I opened the invoice. Vintage Omega, estimated at $12,500. She'd had it valued. I sat back. The pieces started falling into place. This wasn't a crime of passion. She'd planned this for months, changed names, created new accounts, tracked my movements. I called the appraisal office. Yes, the receptionist said. Samantha Ellis. She was here in April, brought in a beautiful piece, said it belonged to her grandfather. Do you remember who she was with? A pause. Yes, actually. Tall man. Expensive taste. He did most of the talking. Can you describe him? Beard, designer shoes, accent, maybe Australian? I hung up and typed until my fingers hurt. Miami, real estate, Australian investor, Samantha Ellis. It didn't take long. Liam Archer. His photo was on a developer's site, luxury condos, beachfront properties, and on his wrist in one press photo. My watch. I stared at it like it might blink. I called the officer back, gave him the name, the company, the photo. He promised to escalate it, suggested I talk to a lawyer. Instead, I called Jake. Jake was the only friend I hadn't pushed away during the past year. We hadn't talked in months. Man, he said when I finished, that's straight up surgical. She played you. I let her. No, he said. You trusted her. That's different. There was a silence. You still got that copy of her passport? Yeah. Then it's not over. Something shifted in me after that call. Not rage, not yet. Just clarity. I wasn't broken. I wasn't lost. I was assembling a case, piece by piece. And she had no idea. I saved every document, every timestamp, every lie. And one night, while scrolling through her old texts, I found a message from 6 months ago. Unsent, saved in drafts. He's falling apart. He won't even notice when it's gone. I stared at the screen, not breathing. That was me she was talking about, and she was right. Back then. But now I noticed everything. I thought I was prepared. But nothing prepares you for the moment the truth doesn't just hurt, it humiliates. 2 weeks after filing the report, I got the call. Mr. Crane, this is Detective Alvarez. We've located the individuals. Miss Ellis has been detained. We'd like you to come in. My heart slammed once, then went quiet. At the station, Alvarez was all business. He slid a folder toward me. Inside, photos from hotel security cams. Her, Liam, the watch, a timestamp, 3 days ago. They tried to pawn it in Nassau, he said. The shop flagged the serial number. I blinked. Nassau? As in the Bahamas? He nodded. She claimed it was hers. Story didn't hold. He ran the moment we showed up. Ran. Boat. Disappeared. I laughed, short and sharp. It sounded nothing like me. She's here? He nodded again. Extradited last night. We've booked her under grand larceny. And then he said something that cracked the floor under me. She's asking to see you. I didn't answer. I stood, walked. The hallway to the holding room was long and too quiet. And then she was there, sitting behind glass in a gray hoodie, hair tied back like a stranger. No makeup, no performance. But when she looked up, her eyes, same as always, calculating, calm. I picked up the phone. She did the same. Hello, Michael. I'm not here for closure, I said. Of course not, she smiled. You're here to see if I'm broken. I didn't reply. She tilted her head. I was going to tell you. When? After you sold everything my father left me? It was just a watch, she said, voice low. No, I said. It was my blood. You knew that. A pause. Then she leaned in. He gave you a watch. I gave you 10 years. And you never once noticed I was drowning. I laughed bitterly. So you swam to another man? That your defense? No, she said. I built another life. Because I had to. Because loving you was like disappearing. I stared at her. Then why steal? She blinked. Just once. Because I wanted something real. Something that still mattered. The silence was unbearable. She put the phone down. Stood up. That was it. I walked out without looking back. But later, that night, I broke. In my apartment, with her voice still echoing in my head, I dropped to the floor beside the safe. Opened it. Stared at the void. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was nothing. And in that void, the thought came. Maybe she was right. Maybe I'd been asleep for years. Maybe I did lose her long before I noticed. I crawled to the mirror, sat in front of it. What I saw, I didn't recognize. Not the eyes, not the jaw clenched so hard it trembled. I slammed my fist into the glass. It didn't shatter, just cracked. A spider web right across my face. Perfect. A symbol. I sat there, blood dripping from my knuckles, the mirror fractured, me split down the middle. That's when the numbness turned to fire. She thought I was blind. But now I saw, and I wasn't finished. I stopped chasing her, and started seeing the bigger game. The case wasn't just personal anymore. I realized that the watch wasn't the only thing she'd taken. She'd hacked into my past, rewritten it, and tried to erase my future. But it wasn't just her. There was someone else behind this. I started digging. I requested copies of the Nassau police report. It listed Liam Archer as uncooperative and potential flight risk. No known address, no immigration trail prior to last year. His financials were thin, too thin. No tax records, no licenses, no family. He wasn't a man, he was a cover. I took the documents to Jake. He worked in corporate security now, former IT, now surveillance consultant. We met in a diner off I-95, laptops open, steaming coffee between us. "This guy doesn't exist," Jake muttered. "He's not in any global ID system." "Fake name?" Jake shook his head. "Fake life, but the shell company's tied to his real estate work. That's the crack. All linked to an umbrella firm in Delaware." "What's the name?" "Bright Harbor Investments." The moment I heard it, something clicked. That name. I'd seen it before, on her desk, a glossy brochure last fall. I remember asking what it was. She said, some investor left it at work. Number. She'd brought it home. Jake kept scrolling. "This gets uglier. Bright Harbor's under investigation for laundering, real estate flips, article jewelry." "And watches?" I asked. Jake turned the screen, a seized asset list, third row down. 1X Omega wristwatch, vintage gold, value estimated $12,000. It wasn't mine. It was another one. Same make, same model. They were stealing heirlooms. I leaned back. The room blurred. She wasn't just escaping a marriage. She'd joined something organized, calculated, predatory, and she'd used me, my grief, my routines, my trust, as her entry point. This wasn't betrayal. It was a recruitment. She was part of it. I didn't speak for a while. Jake just waited. Then I said, "We need proof." He nodded. We build a wall, one piece at a time. We started with metadata, flight bookings, offshore emails, hidden folders. We linked her emails to 3 other aliases. Samantha Ellis was just the first mask. And the most damning clue came from a forgotten USB in her old nightstand. It had a folder named Archive. Inside, scans of passports, invoices, voice memos. In one memo, I heard her voice. "She trusts me now. Think we can move the next one by May." The date? 2 months before she left. I didn't feel sick. I felt awake. This was never about the watch. It was about the network. And now I had a piece of it. She'd lit the fire. Now I would burn the whole thing down. I stopped thinking like a victim and started moving like a threat. Jake and I worked in silence most nights. The living room turned into a war room. Maps, documents, laptops, lists of names I couldn't say out loud without feeling a chill. We weren't just tracing stolen watches. We were tracking a pattern. Bright Harbor wasn't a company. It was a siphon, a machine that lured broken people, gave them false power, and used them until they were disposable. And Sylvia, she wasn't at the top. She was a recruiter. I needed a witness, a crack in the machine. That's when Claire appeared. She'd messaged me on an old shared account I'd forgotten to delete. I'm not proud of what I did, but I didn't know the full picture. Can we talk? We met in a coffee shop near the courthouse. She was younger than I expected, nervous, blonde hair tucked under a knit cap. She kept checking the door. "I worked for Liam," she said. "Assistant. I thought he was just rich and messy." "And when did that change?" She slid a flash drive across the table. "When I found this." I opened it that night. Dozens of transactions, photos of stolen items, voice memos, including one of Sylvia coaching another woman. How to fake a story, how to cry, how to disappear. Claire had fled after realizing the next target was someone she knew. "They destroy people," she said quietly. "They leave you empty." I asked her why she contacted me. Because you're the first one to fight back. We built the final case from her files. 3 victims had already filed reports. None had stuck. With Claire's testimony and my evidence, we had enough for federal interest. But we needed eyes. So, we staged it. A charity gala. Bright Harbor's latest project was launching a restoration initiative downtown, front for laundering. Jake got us in with fake press passes. Claire came as herself, to bait Liam. I stood in the crowd, hidden in plain sight, watching. Then I saw her, Sylvia, hair dyed darker, a new dress, but the posture, same as always, back straight, chin high, scanning the room like a queen. She didn't see me, but I saw everything. Liam at her side, laughing, holding court, and on his wrist, not my watch, a new one. They'd moved on. It should have made me sick. Instead, it made me sharper. I moved to the balcony, pulled out my phone, dialed Alvarez. They're both here, I said, and we've got enough. What's your end game? He asked. I looked through the glass, watching her sip champagne. To make sure they never do this again. Silence. Then, copy that. We're moving. Behind me, the city lights flickered. Inside, the wolves kept smiling. But this time, someone was watching back. They never saw me, but I saw the end before it began. The raid came 23 minutes after my call. No sirens, no chaos, just quiet men in dark suits, spreading through the gala like ink in water. Jake was near the service doors, earpiece in. Claire stood by the bar, steady, unreadable. And I stood still in the corner, invisible in plain sight. When the agents closed in, Liam was mid-laugh, glass raised. 2 men stepped behind him, hands on his shoulders, and just like that, the charm cracked. He turned, saw the badges, dropped the glass. Shards hit the marble. Sylvia reacted faster, always faster. She backed up, heels clicking, looking for exits. But Claire was there, cutting her off. Their eyes locked. Sylvia's expression didn't change, but her voice did. You, she said, you little parasite. Claire didn't blink. They know everything, she said quietly. Sylvia smiled, cold, sharp. You think this matters? She glanced once across the room, and that's when she saw me. Her face froze. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stared, as if I'd climbed out of her past and ruined the future she'd stolen. The agents cuffed her, walked her out. The room murmured. Whispers bloomed like fire. No one knew what they'd witnessed, but they felt it. Jake joined me by the wall. You good? I nodded, but I didn't feel good, not yet. Outside, flashing lights painted the street. Sylvia sat in the back of a black SUV, wrists bound, eyes locked forward. Liam was nowhere to be seen, already separated, processed, dissected. Claire lit a cigarette with shaking hands. I thought I'd feel better. You will, I said. She looked at me. Will you? I didn't answer. She crushed the cigarette under her heel. You should keep the files. There's more in there. People they never even touched yet. Jake looked over. We gonna send this up the chain? I looked down at my hands. Quiet. Still. No shaking. Then I said, we burn it all. That night, I walked home. Didn't call a cab. Didn't need music. I just walked. Block after block, past the neighborhoods I used to pass with her beside me, past restaurants where we used to lie to each other with smiles and wine. I reached my building just before midnight, climbed the stairs, unlocked the door. The apartment smelled clean, empty. I opened the safe, and there it was, resting in velvet, still warm from its last betrayal. My father's watch. I took it out, clasped it onto my wrist. It fit. Not like before, too loose, too big. Now it was mine. I sat by the window, the city outside alive and unaware. And for the first time since it all began, I felt time move forward, not back. The courtroom was quiet, no verdict yet, just the sound of chairs, footsteps, breath. She turned once, looking for someone, anyone. I didn't stand, didn't wave. She didn't see me. Outside, the wind pushed leaves across the courthouse steps. I stood still, coat open, the weight of the watch on my wrist. Time moved. People passed. I didn't. Not until the doors closed behind her. Then I walked, past the noise, the questions, the flashing lights, down the street, into the quiet. No words, no revenge speech, no final look, just silence, and the sound of something ending.